So you might be wondering why a restaurant build costs $500,000 more than the neighboring ones when they look identical. What is that about? I'm Nicole at Build Consulting Vancouver, where we help find your dream space, build it out, and hand you a turnkey operation. Today, I'm here to talk to you about why two spaces can look identical but have a crazy different price tag and how to mitigate that happening to you on building your first restaurant. The first thing you want to take a look at is infrastructure. What's behind the walls? What is in the building? What is your voltage and electrical panel like? What is your HVAC like? Things that most people who aren't in the construction world don't think about. These are things that can cost you a ton of money either to bring into the space or to have to replace, and definitely something that you'll want to check out before signing any type of lease. An example being, one of my most recent clients had signed a lease with the intention of the space only needing 250 amps based on all the other previous locations. When it came down to it, because the space was a little bit bigger, they needed 400 amps, which cost them an extra $62,000 to bring in an additional panel, which is definitely something that wouldn't be in the budget, wouldn't be something that would be forecasted or foreseen for. But if you're working with somebody like myself or some type of consultant along the way in the beginning parts, this would definitely be something that we would capture as we're going through the equipment list in the kitchen or different electrical needs that space is going to garner. These are things that you'll need to figure out beforehand, as they can cost you a ton afterwards. The second item, what was previously used in the space? Sometimes the tenant before will leave the space in a place that is unrecognizable. There could have been a fire, a flood, something like that deeply affects the structural integrity of the building. And this is something that I've actually seen in a couple of my jobs that aren't disclosed beforehand. And we have found out in our due diligence process that there has been a flood from tenants above into their space. So it seeped down into the walls and greatly affected the integrity of the build. I know, right? And the walls were tiled, so we didn't know until we peeled it back and there was like mold everywhere. The third is code compliance. So your mechanical standards, everything that has dealings with the city, your permits, your venting, anything that basically allows you to work in that place as is. Something that people would need to look into is exactly what the space is zoned for or what is allowed to be sold or not sold in a space. So certain areas cannot have animals. So you couldn't have a vet hospital or anything to do with live animals. This would be in violation of what would then be your lease. So this is something that you would have to look into beforehand and check with your broker to make sure that what you are selling or your services are aligned with what the space actually allows. And then the last, timeline delays. Everybody hates them and they happen far too often for everyone's liking, but it is probably something that you will encounter if you're building out franchises, if you have more than one. If you're doing this a lot, you will see timeline delays. It could be anything from permitting to your equipment arriving late to not being able to hire and staff up enough to get open for the date that you had allotted. So in closing, costs can be predictable when you know what you're getting yourself into from the get-go. If you hire the right team, if you're looking at the right space, if you have done the right due diligence and you know your budget, it can be a predictable build. But if you don't have those things in line, it could be something that leads you down a place you don't want to be. So in summary, these are all things that can take your well-budgeted and well-planned space from a $750,000 build to a $1.2 million build overnight. These are things that Build Consulting helps mitigate, and we would be happy to jump on a discovery call with you to talk through your project, your vision, and exactly what you're thinking and see if this aligns with what we can bring to Vancouver.